welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time, unless we are in Indiemission. Because right now we are covering Cat Voleur's Revenge Arc. A very dark and spooky season-esque book.
And also, what does it say about me that I'm like, I love this book?
I freaking love this book. Okay, and so Laura, like, before we get into what we're reading, watching, and or enjoying, I do behoove both of us, because I have a signed copy to give to our giveaway winner.
Yay.
We should buy this book because the artwork in the actual book itself is beautiful, and you do not always get it on the Kindle. Like, it has, like, I mean, it's not like beautiful where it's like, oh, this is the prettiest thing ever, but it has like the chat boards, like with little icons.
I just have the
and
Kindle edition.
No, I got the Kindle edition and now I'm regretting it because it's just like they have the little like icons for the people talking. The text messages are in text blurbs. Like it's very visually satisfying. And so I do think that the book is well worth purchasing. I'm gonna put it out there.
You've convinced me.
So everyone, order their copy if you haven't read it yet. It's quick to read the first 50% of this book. So go get it, go read it, come back and listen because it's
highly enjoyable.
So
like if you're one of those, we'll get into it, but if you're one of those people that likes going on deep dives and things on the internet, you will highly enjoy this book and be really absorbed in it. And
I think we like indie 50%. Spooky stuff.
I mean, yes.
Very obsessed with our prior to Indiemissions, and they're a little bit on the spookier, darker side. So
this one is excellent, though. And I'm like reading this, and there's just so much happening, but I'm like, am I a weirdo that I'm like really into this?
I keep reading it and being like, so I've always known that I've been weirdly into horror, but like I'm too scared to listen to ghost stuff. But like this is exactly Hannah's sweet spot. So.
It's one of those things where it's like, how much of a weird person am I if I enjoy like very like reading or consuming very disturbing things? Like, do I need to make an additional appointment in therapy or?
I don't think so because we're not creating our own murder system as a character in this book is doing. So I think we're okay. But I'm really vibing with this book and I can't wait to talk to Kat about it.
For sure.
But before we dive into this spooky book, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I recently read another Star Wars book, Star Wars Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn. And this one is like set after the events of like the end of the original trilogy. So 3, 4, 5. Or not 3, 4, 5, 6.
4, 5,
Apologies.
6, yes.
People are coming now to
how dare you, Laura?
Us.
You know how important Star Wars is to Hannah.
One single mistake and we've lost all our followers. But anyways, so yeah, it's set in the like events right after the original trilogy, and it follows primarily the big three, Luke, Leia, and Han, as they're trying to kind of like navigate like what the worlds look like or what everything's going to look like with their alliance of rebels, and also like now that the Empire is defeated, what do we do? And realizing that, oh, there's actually still a lot of pieces that are there, even though we've gotten rid of the Emperor seemingly and Vader is seemingly gone. There's still a lot of pieces that, you can't just demolish an empire in one swift movie. There's a lot of background happening there. And I thought actually this was a really enjoyable book. Like I really dug it, and I listened to it on audio, and it was another one of those books that has like all of the graphic audio where you have like the sounds of the ships and everything like that. But I was prepared for it this time, even though I do not generally prefer the graphic audio versions via sci-fi. Because when I'm driving my car, especially, I question like, is there something wrong with my car? No, it's just the sound of the ships. But
they're not real. They're just in your head.
Yeah, literally. So, yeah. But this was actually a really enjoyable book. Like, this is easily the best Star Wars book I've read.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's good.
it was really great, and I really enjoyed listening to it, and I thought the narrator did a great job. My husband listened to parts of it with me, and he said of the narrator, he was like, "This guy makes it sound like you're actually listening to another movie. Like you
Oh,
could believe that this was just a movie in the background because the narrator did an excellent job just like making the different voices sound like the actual actors that they had in the original trilogy,
oh, that's
which
fun.
was really good. I mean, I give narrators like a lot of credit because they are actors. They're voice actors is what they
Yes,
do. So to be able to do all those different voices and make them sound so close to what the original trilogy actors sounded like was fantastic. But yeah, this is a really interesting book, and I think it does play with a lot of themes of like how the politics of this type of situation would work out and how there are still a lot of loose ends when you're in a situation like this, that an empire isn't just immediately destroyed, and there
right.
are going to be these people who are going to try and step in and take the place of the person who was removed and was
Yeah.
leading that empire. And so I really thought it was great. And we do have I mean, Leia and Han, spoiler, are pregnant with Jedi twins.
Oh dear. So it's not canon to the film.
The film is not canon to this, whichever way you want to look at it, because I think there are more things surrounding the twins than there are. And again, people are probably coming to the comments right now, emailing us like crazy and leaving one-star reviews because I've got it wrong. But I want to say that there's actually more to support there being twins than there
Uh,
just being one
Kylo Ren and a
Kylo Ren.
million fan fictions about Kylo
Yeah.
Ren. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So
Um,
I think the movie maybe strayed a little bit from like what the book canon and legends stories said.
that makes
But
sense.
yeah, I do think though with the Jedi twins, like they are used kind of like as like a bargaining chip almost, where it's like we need our hands on more Jedi. We want these Jedi twins to raise as our own type of thing. And that was a little bit ridiculous to me, but it's also Star Wars, so all of it's a little bit ridiculous,
Can I
you know?
tell you one of my funniest moments for Marvel recently? I
Yes.
haven't seen the film, but Fantastic Four First Steps.
Hmm.
There is a commercial that got me every single time it aired because it was Pedro Pascal talking to a bunch of news reporters going, Galactus is going to kill the Empire, but he asked for too much in return for our safety. And they said,
What
what
did
did
he
he
ask
ask
for?
for? And he
Our
goes,
child.
our baby. And I all I can think every time I see that is that's an inside thought. You should not disclose that you signed on for the end of the world because you needed to sacrifice your baby because no one is gonna be on board with that, sir. Like everyone is going to want you to give up your baby. You
I
need to
know.
keep that so locked down. Don't talk about
It's
it.
funny that I knew exactly where you were going with this because that was also for me. It's very funny to
It's
watch that clip because they played it so much, and by like
so
the
much.
50th time you've seen it, you're like,
I
our
don't think you should have
child.
said that.
The way that Pedro Pascal just like his sad, beautiful face like looks out at the crowd and is like, our
Our
child.
baby. And it's just like, sir, don't tell people about that. You keep that quiet. You keep that locked
Yeah.
down. Oh, it's
Oh.
so funny. Sorry, so that's what I'm thinking about with these Jedi babies, where they're like, they
Yeah,
ask for too much. Our babies.
I'm not gonna lie, that was probably, and it is a big part of the story too, but it did seem a little bit ridiculous to me at times where I did kind of like roll my eyes a little bit at that. But that being said, they do add in this series, in this book, the first book in this series, some interesting and like dynamic antagonists, and I think
Okay.
that that helps a lot. So it was a really good book, and I've read a handful now of like other Star Wars books and like several of the comics, and this is easily the best one that I've read
Oh,
of any Star
nice.
Wars books. So I had made a comment on it online about like, yeah, this is a really enjoyable book. Like it was really improving my Thursday, the one Thursday when I was listening to it. And somebody was like, my disappointment that this wasn't the story of the
Oh,
seventh movie. And I was like, actually, this would have been a really good seventh movie. We should have went that direction, but Unfortunately, we did not. But I'm going to
Okay.
continue with this because it's the Thrawn trilogy. So this is the first one in that. But yeah, really enjoyable time. And then
Oh, good.
the other audiobook that I recently read was Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevedo.
Oh, so
I
good.
sobbed. Oh
Of
my
course you did.
gosh.
It's a very sad story, Laura.
Oh, I knew
It's
you had read this one and loved it. And it was a short listen, but oh
yeah.
my gosh, how devastating. We have these two young girls who figure out that their father was basically living a double life.
Yes.
And they discover each other when their father dies. And the dynamics between the two of them and them, like, I mean, it's also a coming of age story as well. They're both at the age where they're going to be like heading off to college. They're really
Mhm.
close in age. They have these extremely different upbringings and different levels of trauma, and it was heartbreaking. I and the narration for it was excellent. The author is one of the narrators of the book too.
Oh,
And
really? That's
yeah,
awesome.
there's two narrators and the author is one of them. But what a devastating, excellent book. Like I cannot recommend it enough. It was so, 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 so good. And I just think like some YA books go extremely hard and they're like, you know what? We're going to hit you in all of the feels with this. And Elizabeth Acevedo does such a great job. I've read now a few of her books, and
Yeah.
this one really just really got to me. And I just thought it was excellent.
It's so good. I loved that one. It was so beautiful and just
Hmm.
so and just like the discussion of like leading a double life and how that affects certain family members around you when it came to like who inherited what and like
Yeah.
who had power over who. It's
And
really
also just
devastating.
discussions of just like, I mean, it is talked about too with the different like relationships with the families because he did have two families essentially. So with the moms of the daughters, and it was interesting how like both of the daughters did consider their moms to a degree, but not totally, a very like teenage look at this, which I appreciated honestly, because if you are a teenage girl finding out about something like this, you're not going to necessarily be like, but how was my mom affected? You're going to definitely be more in the realm of like, I can't believe my dad did this to me.
Yes,
And
exactly.
I thought it was so good. And I mean, we also get some queer representation too,
Hmm.
which I thought was handled well. And I think just the differences in like the biological differences that these girls had and how they both were beautiful and like resembled their father and resembled
Yeah.
each other, but their situations were so different and also they were so different yet so similar. I
Yes.
thought that was a really unique way to portray these young women.
Yeah.
It was absolutely beautiful. I can't say enough good things about it.
Loved it. Glad you read it.
Yeah, so 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 good. And then as far as watching, um, I've just been watching like hours upon hours of Would I Lie to You
Oh
on
yeah. Oh
YouTube.
God.
Do you watch that
So
show at
funny.
all?
I've never watched like an actual full episode, but I do watch a lot of clips of it,
Hmm.
mostly of Bob Mortimer on Would I Lie
Okay.
to You, because he is insanely good at that show and his life is so random.
I mean,
Like,
I think the people that are most successful in that show, honestly, are a little bit weird
yes.
and have had a little bit of a more rural life, honestly,
Yes.
because I love David Mitchell on that show. He
Yes.
is the posh person, but he has a hard time believing a lot of these stories. Like when James
Hmm.
Acaster has been on before, he'll tell stories about like there was a story he told about like playing a Christmas game of squirt where the firemen would come out and they try to move a barrel with their fire hoses or something. And David was just having like the hardest time believing this and like thinking
Hmm.
it was so ridiculous. And I'm like, that sounds exactly like something that would happen in a rural area that firemen would do this for a fundraiser or their yearly get together type thing.
Very
It
much
made
so.
complete sense to me. And also just like some of the things that Greg Davies has talked about on that show, I'm like, sounds about right for somebody who spent a lot of time in the car with their family traveling. Like they would make up weird games, and he was a nerdy, shy kid, so he would have a lot of weird experiences. So some of the things just kind of fit to me, and I feel like I have gotten fairly good at guessing when the stories are real or not. And I think Bob Mortimer is good at that show because he has had such a unique life, and
Yes.
he does really like portray his own life from a standpoint of like he's so genuine about his own experiences in life, even though he is someone who's now a celebrity and everything and has had all these experiences. He still like kind of comes at things from like a really like honest and genuine standpoint, where even when he's listening to other people tell their stories, he's like, wow, that's amazing, like that story has all of the glimmer, all of the like, it's a great story. It's all put together, and it's like, yeah, he's just so genuine that it's
Yeah.
really easy to believe even when he's telling a lie, because he's not only had a unique life, but he just like seems like a kind and decent person kind of. So
Yes.
yeah, I think he definitely though is like a little bit of a thorn in David Mitchell's side.
David Mitchell is always like beside himself. And the way that like my household, there's a story that Mortimer talks about where he talks about like sneaking into neighbors' gardens and going, "We
Uh-huh.
humbly beg your pardon, but we are in your garden."
That's the game of theft and shrubbery.
Yeah. So we say that in my household all the time. I have a
Mhm.
Stardew Valley game where one of the names of my farms is Pardon Garden.
Okay. The one
Like,
that I always like love to watch, I've watched it several times now, is when Bob was telling a story about how Chris Rea, I said Rea, it's Rhea, but they with their accents put an R at
right.
the end. But Chris Rea, the singer, he worked with Bob on a project years ago, and Bob claimed that Chris had put an egg in his bath, and that now he always does that. He always puts an egg in his bath. And so Bob goes on this elaborate story of telling how you lay in the bath and it's actually not greasy to have that egg in there, and he likes to like kind of try and work the yolk up to his face, and then he'll grab the yolk and he'll use it and like rub it over his head and everything to kind of like moisturize his scalp and all this stuff. And they ended up saying that it was probably true. And then when it's revealed that this is a lie, David goes off the handle and he starts like yelling, "Of course it's a lie. Who could possibly believe that?" And it's like, you
You did.
a
You
minute ago.
believed it. Yeah. But
And
he's always just so much like, you never know what to do with Bob. You just, guys, you just gotta like get through
yep.
it. Like,
And he will like say things about like, well, what's gonna happen is we're gonna make a decision and then I'm gonna go and run some errands because I cannot handle what we're going to learn in this amount of
yes.
time, basically. And I feel like I just really when I first started watching it, I kind of started watching it because I was like, oh, Lee Mack, he's funny and he was on Taskmaster. And I
Yeah.
do appreciate how quippy Lee is and how he can like come up with these stories so quickly. But I feel like you go into that show, you come for Lee Mack, you stay for David Mitchell because David is so neurotic and I love it so much.
His wife was on Taskmaster.
Yes, Victoria.
Yes,
Mhm. She's been
Victoria.
on multiple episodes of Would I Lie to You also,
Oh,
but
good.
I honestly think I like Would I Lie to You better than Taskmaster. Like, I know,
Ooh.
shocking take, but I just kind of love the combination of uh Lee and David. They are fantastic. I think that they've got like a really good dynamic between them and the host. So yeah, really hilarious. And I also like, even though David is considered like really posh and like unrelatable and all this stuff, I still feel like I relate to him a little bit because he has all these neuroses that seem so relatable to someone who is shy and introverted that I'm
Yeah,
like,
I feel like
I
he
get
has
it.
that nerdy energy that like people
Oh
can
yeah.
really connect to because I feel very
Hmm.
connected to him even though well, I guess I am a little posh. I always say that I'm a little highfalutin, but like yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I love that show so much. So I've watched like hours upon hours of that show, and then we also watched all of the first season of Last One Laughing, which is on Prime Video,
Okay.
and that is a British show as well that's hosted by Jimmy Carr, and basically what he does is he traps a bunch of British comedians in a room, and they are not allowed to laugh,
Oh,
but
good.
they're all supposed to like make each other laugh. And there are a lot of people from Taskmaster casts in that.
Mm.
first season. So if you're interested in that type of thing, and also if you like Bob Mortimer, well worth the watch because Bob is hilarious
He's
in that
very good.
show. We we laughed at him a lot, and there's a particular moment where Bob makes the comment, "Meats and cheeses always pleases," and my husband and I have said that to each other probably multiple times a day, every day since
Meats
we've
and
seen that.
cheeses always pleases.
So please watch that one if you like Bob Mortimer. So,
Oh,
but Hannah, what have you
2025, the
been?
year of the British show.
I mean, thank you, YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, YouTube.
Hannah, what have you been reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So something you brought up recently on the podcast, I listened to The Babysitter Lives by Stephen Graham
Yes.
Jones, one of Laura's favorite of his so far.
Yes.
This book is really trippy. It's his
Hmm.
take on a like haunted house narrative
Hmm.
where a girl goes in to babysit for the evening and can she get out when she learns about the funny places? It is
Hmm.
very creepy. The first night I started listening to it, I was driving home and it was dusk and I was
It
like,
was getting dark, and you're like,
not the
no.
right time. And I changed
It's
channels
also not the
very
right time if
quickly.
you're going to spend time around any small children.
Oh God, yeah, that's so scary. Because it is very like liminal and it gets under your skin.
Hmm.
And like he just does such a good job of making like a visceral horror story where there are so many elements that like jar you out of the story and remind you that like humanity itself kind of sucks.
I keep
Like,
saying this about his writing, and I say this about horror, but I think particularly because I've consumed several of his horror books this
yes.
year. But I feel like he does a great job of allowing you to get inside the head of the characters and like have a deeper understanding almost of like what they're going through. Like that perspective is so
Yes,
unique, the way that he
it
writes it.
is.
And I think
And
it makes
he
it creepier.
And something I also love is like I mostly almost always listen to at least the first 10 minutes of his author interview at the end of his audiobooks because
I listen
he
to all of
just
them because they're great.
they're so great. He's such a good author and he's so fascinating to listen to because like the way his mind works when he's creating these stories, what makes him think of them, the fact that like there's something specific about horror where it is like these liminal spaces that are very unsettling, but like an author who wants to write it, they're thinking of it and they're just like they're kind of obsessed with it in the moment and they have to
Hmm.
like almost excise it from their body. And he talks about how like that was definitely how he felt about this story. And I think it's
Hmm.
just so apt and so beautiful. So definitely go listen to these books. I think he has a lot of like queer
This is
women
one of his
represent.
earlier works too, Babysitter Lives.
Yes. And it was one that wasn't actually supposed to be a book. It was more like a radio almost
Yeah,
play type
because it
thing.
was
It wasn't.
originally only on audio.
Yes. And so it was an earlier work only on audio and then later came out in written format. But like it does
Mhm.
feel great audio wise because it does
Yeah.
just kind of drop you into it. And I do
Also,
think he,
Isabella Star LeBlanc is the narrator. Absolutely love Isabella's narration. Isabella also was the narrator of The Firekeeper's Daughter, which is something
oh,
that
yeah,
people will remember me gushing about. So,
such a good book.
mhm.
But I also really like Stephen Graham Jones has a lot of like queer women, specifically like queer Indian women
Mhm.
representation, which I think
Mhm.
is also a very interesting thing to consume because in this book she talks about how her mother thinks she's like part of the two spirit and like there is a
Sure.
different representation when it comes to queerness that I think our Western identities don't often track with because we're coming from a
Right.
Western mindset and a lot of other cultures do not see heterosexuality and homosexuality as that big of a deal. So I do think
Hmm.
it's interesting to kind of have that context in this book as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but I loved it. Good
Did you
rec
read
from
Killer on the
Laura.
Road?
I haven't read Killer on the Road yet.
Okay, I think
So,
you should read that one. So they were like kind of recommended together
okay.
on Libby, and saw when we were at a bookstore together, you and I, that Killer on the Road, the print version, it had in the back of it, The Babysitter Lives.
Oh, interesting.
So
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
like being sold together also, but I think they do kind of fit together. And I
Okay.
don't want to like spoil things. And that's kind of what, when I was talking about it in an earlier episode, I was like, I see this. I was like having a moment of realization as I was talking about the two books where I'm like, I see the connection and why they're kind of marketed together.
Oh, good.
But yeah, I think you should read that one next, Killer on the
Okay.
Road. I think that's his more recent
Got it.
release.
I'll have to look it up. And then for another book of spooky season, boom, 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 I read Tender Beasts by Liselle Sambury. She wrote Blood Like Magic, which is very popular, as well as Delicious Monsters, which is again one of her horror. This is a YA thriller slash horror. Um, so good, but so YA in certain aspects. So
Sure.
this follows the Bear family, um, specifically a youngest daughter of the Bear family. Her name is Sunny. And we find out at the beginning of the novel that her mom just died. And her youngest brother, the entire family thinks is a murderer, and he killed
Mm.
his girlfriend a year ago, on the night that his mom died. And then we kind of
Mm.
flash forward until a couple months later, and Sunny talks about the fact that, and this is where you feel the YA-ness of it. Sunny is 17, she's entering high school, and her mom kind of raised her to hopefully become the matriarch one day. But Sunny has
Mhm.
two older sisters, and one who very much thinks that she's supposed to be in charge as the oldest. And like Sunny, every other page is like, I was supposed to be in charge. And you're like, Sunny, we know. But it
Oh,
is very
the
realistic for
villainy
like
is villainy.
it's like it's very much like if you were a youngest child or a youngest like daughter where your mom told you this and then she died suddenly, you would probably be like, this was supposed to be mine without any context of
Yeah.
like yours in like 20 years. Like right now, you guys are all going through a lot. Um, but these people keep winding up dead, and she's worried that her brother is the person who was connected to it. But she got a note from her mom that she should take care of the brother. So she thinks it's her duty to find out who this killer is. And then there's this random
Okay.
lady who pops up and asks her if she knows who the milkman is. And it's very unsettling and very creepy. And then
Mm.
we find out different things through her mom's journal throughout it. It's very like uh, weirdly spooky where you're not sure if like what's going on is actually happening in the real world or if there's something like
The
actual,
reliability of it all.
yeah, the reliability of it all, if this is really happening. But like through it, we find out it's a very interesting book because the Bear family is incredibly wealthy. And so
Okay.
but they are a black family as well. So they are often looking at things through the lens of like richness, but also richness with the closeness of blackness and how you can still be seen as like a murderer or a quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote
Mm-hmm.
thug, like in the eyes of her brother, you know, when in fact, like you're never as far away from your blackness as people think you are, you know, if you have this
Right.
richness. So
Even if we are moving up the economic ladder, we're still socially
seen as less than in certain
seen as
ways. And
less,
so, and they kind
because
of,
of our
so
race.
it's a very interesting look at that. It's a very quick read, but very deep in so many different ways. I thought it was a
Hmm.
good ride. Um, it keeps you guessing. It keeps people like on their toes. I don't want to reveal too much of it over other than like what I give
Sure.
is a broad overview. But it was the perfect book to get me out of like my year-long reading slump because it was just fun to like sit down and read at
Yeah.
night and see what was going on. So I feel like you and I enjoy a good YA novel, and this was definitely
Oh,
that.
I love YA.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, and it's so quick and fun. And I don't know, these books were so deep. It was just interesting to see. It was also interesting to see like the dad in this is rather incompetent. And I think this
Okay.
looked at the family unit as a very specific type of thing, you know,
Okay.
without looking away from like when the main character failed. Like one of her friends, so in the beginning of the book, she is very much the character who like wants to be well liked by everyone because her mom
Hmm.
and her family like own the school that they're in. It's kind of almost like a charter school that is mostly representing people who are like poor, but the mom sends the kids to school because she believes in this school. So like Sunny is like, well, we have a reputation to uphold, so I must be well liked by everyone, and I must be always perfect and always sunny and always friendly. And then throughout the rest of the book, it's like that's not what people actually want. Like that's very
Right.
upsetting, and also like people people know if you're being fake to them and they, you know, they can
Hmm.
get freaked out by it. And she kind of learns that. And I think that that's also something that I identify with as a
Hmm.
child, where it's like, I forget how uh, much I wanted to please people because I'm a huge people
Sure.
pleaser. And in high school, I probably was like this of like, well, if I'm nice to everyone, then people must like me. And it's like, well, but if you don't have a personality, how like
Hmm.
friendship comes from vulnerability. And I feel like I was not very vulnerable in high school because I wanted to
Sure.
be quote unquote perfect. So it was very interesting to
Hmm.
read about a child who was struggling with that kind of identity. So, um,
Yeah.
and just like different types of trauma, because in this book, they point out a lot of the ways that the mom, like Sunny very much idolized her mom, but she learns through her siblings that maybe not all of them see their mom in the exact same way. And there were certain ways that the
Hmm.
mom was like emotionally withholding and not very kind to them. And I think that that's also helpful to see represented in a book because, like, sometimes we
Yeah.
don't see the pain that a parent can inflict on us, even though we love them and like we would still
Yeah.
love them and miss them. So I did like that a lot. Um,
That's awesome.
and
I
then,
do like
oh, go
I
ahead.
think you come at YA books from a really unique way where you also like kind of reflect upon your own experience when you were the age of someone who was probably supposed to be like the key demographic for this
The
book.
person who's actually supposed to be reading this book instead of my like
Yeah.
34-year-old self being like, oh, I love the drama.
But honestly, like I really appreciate that you do that because that self-reflection I think is really important. And I think authors would also really appreciate that because I think YA authors do write such deep themes and things like that that they want those things to be considered by all audiences because these books are not like this genre is not just for young adults. Like this is for adults to enjoy also. But I
Yeah.
think that that's a really unique way to come at the genre and YA books in general is to like reflect upon your own experiences as a young adult and how you feel seen or how you would have reacted had you been in that situation or how you can see glimmers of yourself. Because I don't know that I necessarily always do that when I'm reading YA. I think a lot of times I kind of just read it from an adult standpoint where I'm like, this is a really great book and I'm glad we have that type of representation for kids. And I don't know that I always like put myself into the perspective of like when I was a kid, this, so I think that's really unique that you do that.
I'm definitely someone who really loves a good self-reflection moment. And I do think like I kind of wish more people saw it that way because I think there's so like lots of people talk about book banning nowadays.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a lot of holding children to be these like precious beings that you cannot show like pain or darkness to. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, kids are experiencing pain and darkness. It's just different to adults than it is to
Right.
them. And so I do think like showing this type of stuff, like there are people who love a parent, but the parent is not always great. And it's important to show that off just as much as it is to show like good representation of like the perfect
Right.
family. And I think it's like especially with these types of books, like Sunny is such a specific character that I'm like, oh yeah, she's definitely created for young girls who love to read. Because it's like, are you a people
Hmm.
pleaser? Are you not being vulnerable with your friends? Is
Hmm.
that maybe holding you back? I'm like, oh, that's really like a thoughtful portrayal. Because I don't think a lot of people just think that something's wrong with them. And I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
spent so long thinking something was wrong with me in high school. So,
Hmm.
but highly recommend fun book for spooky season and lots of different layers. So, and then for
Nice.
watching, I'm not watching a ton lately. Rewatching Gilmore Girls. That's always a weird thing when you're the same age as Lorelai and she's like raising a 16
Hmm.
or 17-year-old girl. Because like it's so I am getting into the seasons where I started watching it as a child because I started watching it around the third season during like
Hmm.
Rory's big breakup with Dean, you know. And
Hmm.
so it's really weird because I can definitely put myself into my high school self when I'm watching those seasons. And I'm like, oh my God, I
Sure.
remember thinking this when I was young. Like, I remember there was an episode that my husband was listening in on, and he was like, what's happening in that show? Because I had it on at like 6 in the morning to try to fall back
Hmm.
asleep. Um, and I remember it's like a scene where Rory admits to her mom that she kissed so many spoilers for Gilmore Girls, but like Rory's 17, she admits that she kissed another boy in the season previous.
Hmm.
And the mom like has a moment where she's kind of harsh to her daughter and she's like, "Are you still with your boyfriend? Do you want to be with him anymore? If not, you need to break up with him because this is really selfish of you." And I remember as a child being like, how dare she treat her like that? She doesn't know what she wants. And as an adult, I'm like, actually, I really appreciate that she talked to her daughter about that and was like,
Yeah.
it's not fun to be mean to your boyfriend. if you don't want to be with him anymore, I'm not judging you for that, but you do actually
Mm-hmm.
need to be an adult about it and break up with him.
Yeah.
And like later, she like apologizes to her for being so harsh. And she says, I think what I said was warranted, but I wish I had phrased it better. And I was like,
Yep.
I think that that's very kind to see and something that as a child I did not
Mm-hmm.
recognize as much as like the drama of it all and her being like, I was just so overcome I had to kiss Jess. And it's like, no, you could have broken up with the boyfriend you had treated really
Yeah.
meanly for an entire season. You didn't have to stay with him. You were just too scared not to. um
Mm-hmm.
so I do think that those are fun to rewatch as an adult and be like, huh, where has my mind been changed as I grow up into my own self? So
I also wonder, like you mentioning, like how it's interesting to watch this being the same age as Lorelai, but I also wonder what it is like for someone who like had a child very early, you
yeah.
know, like in the same situation as Lorelai, to watch something like this because I'm thinking of even someone that I know very well who had a child when they were a teen, and I'm like, I can't imagine like the experience like their child is now an adult, they're now someone in their 60s, but I'm like this would be a really unique parenting style to be someone that
Yes.
young
Mm-hmm.
parenting a child. And I think it's a different type of relationship because I think we often see like portrayals of Lorelai and Rory being kind of like a little bit joked upon where they're like almost that they're like siblings or whatever, or kind of the
Right.
relationship itself is kind of frowned upon, but there are so many like things about their relationship that are really healthy and I think very good portrayals of someone in that situation and like the way that they would be treated or how they would have to do things a different way or try to like work around the expectations that were set upon them and everything. So I do think that it would be really interesting to like get feedback from someone who maybe had a child when they were fairly
Yeah.
young, like when they were a teen or maybe slightly older. So,
I also think people like go in waves. Like I think it was really important to meme on Lorelai for a while and be like, she's such a bad mom. But like she does a lot
I
of
never thought she was a bad
I know
mom.
there are people who think she's a very bad mom or like her relationship with Emily is kind of her fault where it's like I don't know, it sounds like there's a lot of context we miss and I like I've listened to certain like podcasts about the Gilmore Girls where I'm
Hmm.
like Lorelai is very open about how her parents treated her as a child. So
Yeah.
yes, we do not view it like when we are 16 years later and there's been a lot of growing and a lot of boundaries.
Hmm.
But at the same time, like when Rory moves in with her grandparents, they fall back on what they did to Lorelai and Rory
Yep.
doesn't handle it well. And people are always like, they would never treat her like that. And it's like,
It's
no,
like
people
absolutely they will.
they will because they've done it before. So like it does
Hmm.
make sense. And also like some of the stuff that I think Lorelai gets talked about on is like, oh, she's not the best like with her love life. But they're very open that like Lorelai barely dated when Rory was
Yeah.
growing up. So if you think about it, she was 16, she had a baby, and then she kind of took a break for like
Hmm.
16 years before she had
Yep.
another serious relationship. Like there's a lot that goes into that where it's like, of course she's going to be a little bit stunted in how
Hmm.
she acts or what she did, you know? And
I
so,
just think too, like, there's this huge learning curve for someone that young having a child that then you have like all this responsibility thrown upon you and
yeah.
your life is very different when that
Yes.
happens to you. So your parenting style, your relationship with your child, your relationship with your parents are all going to be very different. And I think
Yes.
especially now when we are like looking at like quote unquote traditional families and a lot of people now are much older having children,
Yes.
it's a lot easier to like harp on Lorelai for maybe being immature or not handling relationships well, et cetera, or not handling like the situation with her parents that well or whatever. But I just still like kind of fall back on like it was a very difficult situation for a child to go through because
Yes.
when you have a kid at 16, you're still a child.
Yes. Well, and she talks about that like there are moments that are very sad and like I remember in season 2 where the mom like for the first time sees where they lived when they were first at the inn
Hmm.
and she's like you hated us that much and Lorelai has a moment where she's being very vulnerable and she was like Mom, I was drowning here and it may not have been the right choice, but I made the right choice for
Yep.
me, and that doesn't mean that we aren't fine now or we're not changed now. And
Hmm.
like the mom can't accept it in that moment because there's just so many hurt feelings about it. And
Right.
like I do think that that's very beautiful, and I think that this is like it's obviously a very beloved show for a lot of reasons,
Sure.
because I think you have these rewatchable moments that are very like silent and quiet, and you get to like see people
Hmm.
live and like backsliding. So there are going to be certain episodes where she's much closer with Emily, and then
Yep.
episodes where she feels very stunted by her mom, and it's not like a direct line and a perfect arc. So
Hmm.
uh, and I watched for the first time Cheetah Girls 2 this weekend,
So I never saw
which
Cheetah Girls 1.
I saw it. I remember being too old when it came out, but it was like still during
Mhm.
that time where you still like watch Disney Channel movies when you're all alone at like someone's house who has cable, and you're
Hmm.
just like, yeah, I'll watch Cheetah Girls and never mention that I watched Cheetah Girls. Um, but the funny part about that is I was like, yeah, I was weirdly obsessed with Dorinda, and I found out like she is the queer person that everyone was obsessed with. So it is funny watching Cheetah Girls as an adult because I'm like, this is a queer movie. Like these are two like one of the women like becomes like very quote unquote close friends with this girl who's kind of like trying to steal her away. And they're constantly like she's constantly like, I'm so sorry I have a new friend. And then they like hold hands as they walk off screen. And I'm like, well, that's just two girls in a relationship. Like, um, but it was fun to watch. It was a wild time. I also watched the Hilary Duff movie Raise Your Voice. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
Oh yeah,
that's
I have seen that one.
it's bad.
I
Like
know.
it's so bad. That
And
movie
she's not a very
makes
good singer.
no, she's a terrible singer in this. Like the entire time my sister-in-law and I were watching it, we were like, she did not deserve to get into this program.
No.
That poor, and there are so many movies that I watch as an adult where like I'm just like, I think that the evil villain may have had a point. Like
I
this
mean,
girl who has been here for like years, working very hard, who seems to know how to harmonize and know like the
mhm,
different things that you're supposed to know, has this
is
other girl who
immediately
comes.
tossed out the window.
Yeah, and like there's a moment where she like talks to one of the teachers, and it's like weirdly flirtatious where she's like, I've been working really hard this year. And then later she like yells at him like, I guess you have a new favorite student. And I'm like, those two obviously were sleeping together in a different version of
Oh
this
my
movie.
gosh.
And it's so inappropriate because they're supposed to be like 16 year
Yeah.
olds. And it's really weird to watch. And it has so many moments of like, that did not age well, where like the guy who's obsessed with Kat Dennings, and he makes a song that he just plays right behind her as she just exists in the foreground.
Hmm.
Why did that happen? It's like she doesn't even know. And it's like spoken to this woman one time. Like it's
Yeah.
creepy. And then Hilary Duff's boyfriend, aka guy from What a Girl Wants, like is like, I'm really serious about you. And then she gets mad at him when he kisses the evil girl, but he kisses her for at least 5 seconds. Like he does not break away immediately. He's kind of into it. And it's like, I
Mhm.
think he deserved to get dumped actually. And then he just shows up to her dorm drunk as all get out, and she
Yep.
forgives him. And it's like, uh, where did the drunkenness come into? It was never hinted at that he had like a drinking problem or anything like that. It's just, it's a wild movie. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I watched
We
it because
should
I knew it was
cover
bad.
a Disney Channel original movie on here.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's spooky season. We could do Halloween Town.
I guess we
Calabar's
could do that one.
Revenge. A Trapper. um,
There
Trapper.
actually are some that are okay, but like a lot of them are wild rides.
I mean, that's just like if you look at the old Hallmark Channel movies, they all were like
Hmm.
weirdly good, and you had like Sarah Plain and Tall, and now they've just
Hmm.
evolved into I'm a baker who solves mysteries on the side.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, give us a suggestion of what Disney Channel movies we should cover because some of those are wild. But shifting all the gears to not Disney Channel.
Yes.
um, so, some quick trigger warnings for this
Hmm.
book, because we do think that it is a horror novel
Hmm.
and it dives into very,
Some
very
pretty
deep and
dark
dark
stuff.
things, specifically involving the dark web and what could potentially be created on there when it comes to rape and rape fantasies and abuse,
Hmm.
lots of other
Murder,
things, murder,
violence.
and some questioning on like, is controversial work okay? So like if that's something that you
Hmm.
feel strongly about, maybe, turn this down and come back next week to talk more about Disney Channel movies. So
Correct.
um, that's not to say that Laura and I didn't love this book because we did. So
Hmm.
this book is hard to describe. I'm going to do my best, but it is very beautiful. As I said up at the top of the show, please go buy it because there's a lot of different formats. We're kind of looking at someone's pieced together internet journal of different
Yeah.
interviews and Discord channels and like um archive of our own posts. They really just like
Hmm.
have this full gamut.
It's a lot of Reddit feeds and also email
Hmm.
discussions and also like people picking things from Tumblr or different
Yes.
interviews that they are pasting together in this big document for us to
Yes.
read.
And so it opens with a tweet from Riley reviewing a movie who we later find out was kind of the main focus of all these posts.
Hmm.
Then we switch over to a website post by someone called Declan's Dungeon. He's talking about Riley attending an AKA con. I like the term of that,
Hmm.
AKA con. He said that she was part of this panel that was not planned. And there were people talking about the fact that, like, no, there's no way she was at this panel, da 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 da. And he's going to be posting the transcripts. He talks about the fact that he is like a nerd who mostly focuses on tabletop games,
Yeah.
but you can tell he does not like Riley's very controversial web comic. He calls it torture
Hmm.
porn, or torture porn. He talks about the fact that like she just released this movie that was supposed to be this huge romance and ended with a 20-minute horror scene that no one was
Hmm.
expecting in the theaters and a lot of people were put off from. And then we switch on over to meeting Riley at the AKA Con in 2019. Wait, no, this isn't. Sorry, not the AKA Con. This is just an interview with Riley
Yes.
from 2019. She's advertising the movie, and we kind of see it in a different context than what
Hmm.
Declan posted it in. We find out that it's not that controversial in her mind, first off. She also talks about the fact that she specifically made this movie for the indie sphere. It was never supposed to have this wide theatrical release. And if it had been released in the indie sphere or on streaming services, it would have had content warnings about blood and
Hmm.
gore. And so that's kind of the sphere she imagined it in. But
Yes.
then it kind of got to be bigger than itself and got this wide
Hmm.
release. And that's what happened. And it got people talking. She also does talk about the fact that she tries to be mindful with this. She said the original intent of the masterpiece, quote unquote, was to have a massacre at a school, but she thought that that was really irresponsible to have young children even if it was at a college, and she thought it would really push for gun violence and she didn't want to do that. So she had it at a wedding. She talks about how she doesn't really like romantic
She doesn't like
comedies.
rom-coms. She like has issues with them, and they're like, interesting that you chose a wedding.
Uh, it's also very funny because, as my editing group once pointed out, I don't like action scenes that are repeated all the time. And then they read my first action scene, and one of them goes, "So, like, you don't like reading them? Do you like writing them?" And I was like, "I actually think I write pretty good action scenes." And they're like, "Yeah, you kind of do." So, those who don't like write the best kinds. So,
There you go.
she does point out that she does appreciate the rom-com genre for what it is.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, then we
I will
do.
say that one thing about like just reading this first half, I thought that the author did a really good job of like handling difficult topics and also like acknowledging that not everything is for everyone and also like hitting on themes of like women who write in horror and how
Mhm.
we treat certain creators in certain spaces. And I think that right from the beginning, we have this brief discussion on rom-coms, which I thought was pretty thoughtful. But I think the author, Kat, does a great job
Oh, yeah.
of going into discussions of these things, which I thought was really unique and a little bit meta in this book.
It's so meta, and she does such a really apt job of being like, there are a million different ways to interpret material, and there's
Yeah.
always more context. So, like, yes, you can still disagree with the overall outcome or how something is handled, but it doesn't mean that it was thoughtless, which I do think is
Hmm.
very important to this book.
Right.
So then we get to read part of the transcript from AKA Con. She talks about how Red, it's this comic that was Declan was talking about, the torture porn.
Hmm.
Um, and how it's releasing its final issue within the past year. She does talk about the fact that it's very controversial and people are trying to get a sequel, but there was no intentional intention for a sequel. Just kind of like an overview of this Red comic that we find out more and more about as time goes on,
Hmm.
and it is dark.
Yeah.
Um, we go over to a fan board about Red. They talk about how Red was created from the term Red Room. More on that later. Not Stephen King,
Yeah.
um, but Red has a person named Red in the comic, and there are a lot of fan theories, specifically about colors, saying that they believe that there are other types of rooms other than a red room. And we also learn about this, like,
There's like a color theory.
yes, and we learn about this other like book that we'll later learn is from Archive of Our Own called Violet.
Hmm.
And they think it's to balance out Red, and that maybe even Riley created this fanfic.
There's a lot of theories being discussed online by these fans and other people who are like part of this Red fandom and
They also
fans
say,
of Riley Langdon.
yes, they said that she like may have made some of these notes for the Violet chapters, and she just got mad that they leaked. There's just so many different theories. We cut
Hmm.
back to the AKA Con interview. She talks about going to the deep web to do her research. There's some like people in the audience saying like, "Oh, did you research the deep web? What did you find out?" And she's like, "Well, I looked, but it's kind of actually boring. Like you can't have these live streams because on the dark web there's no services for streaming that fast."
Hmm.
So she was able to find and like everything that she saw was kind of shut down. She said like she had to get this like old computer and make sure it was safe and all these things, but she never really
Yeah.
found anything about it. Then we cut on over to Riley on Reddit. She's asking people about the deep web and specifically red rooms. We
Hmm.
find out that
She's
red rooms,
basically just kind of like doing some research on her own.
yeah. And it looks like this was before the web series was made.
Correct.
And we find out that red rooms in this moment are torture sites, but the person can pick how a person is tortured if they pay in Bitcoin,
Hmm.
allegedly. People mentioned that they believe that these rooms are real, and people also suggest you go on different Reddit threads, specifically like a deep web thread.
Hmm.
Uh, we cut back to the AKA con. Someone asks how realistic her view of red rooms are, and she's like, it's pretty much hyperbolic. And then we see that she is on the deep web Reddit. Riley is asking about the deep web again, specifically suicide games and Red Room.
Hmm.
There's a lot of discussion about the worst thing they've seen there, and some of it seems to be the creepy pasta variety, which she talks about a lot. If you guys don't know
Hmm.
creepy pasta, it's just like weird stories that are urban
Yeah.
legends. Someone does mention cheese pizza as the worst thing that they ever saw. People will not tell her what this means, and it made me deeply concerned. Um,
I also was just kind of waiting for you to say what it was because I'm like, I don't know what this is, and I
what?
feel dumb.
Laura, I didn't want to look it up.
I was too afraid. Like,
I kind of, so I'm kind of in this. This feels very like manga or like graphic wet, like novel-esque, where I'm like, I'm
well,
along
it
for
is
the
mentioned
ride.
at one point, like during the interviews. I think that like um, people who love anime are quick to jump into this red fandom,
Yes.
and that they were very like accepting of red as a story and were
Yes.
quick to like embrace the art style, even though it was a little more Western. But
Yes.
I do think that maybe there is a little more uh, flexibility in terms of like people who consume a lot of manga or anime that they are possibly more used to seeing like graphic depictions of things because
Yeah.
there are a lot of violent things that happen in some manga.
No, I agree. And I mean more like this book in particular felt like something where I'm like, if she wants me to know what cheese pizza is, we're gonna find out about it later. So I don't want to look too deep.
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Um, And there is a new post at the end of this Reddit from someone called the Creator,
Hmm.
who is creator with a zero as the O, who said that the worst thing they've seen on the deep web was criticism over Riley's work. And that is called foreshadowing. Between reviews for movies, we hear that Riley didn't necessarily enjoy doing the work, but she did enjoy creating this process. We also hear rumors that Mila, the person who like creates the art for
Yeah, the
these
artist
web
for this.
comics, didn't want to write all of the scenes that Riley created. Riley
There's
pushes.
quite a bit of back and forth on this, which is where, for me, like we have that creator moment that is like, ooh, something's gonna happen there. But I think when we start to get into these emails between and the dialogue between Riley and Mila, that it's very much like, something feels icky here. I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's very strange.
This
So
this seems to be a turning point in the book for me.
yes, it is. It's because well, it's the first time where a lot of this is either taking like Riley at the interview or just fan theories, and it's
Mhm.
kind of pulling back to show like Riley herself is an unreliable narrator. If she's
It's
going to
more
be saying things out of it,
complicated than the fans are
yes,
telling us.
yes. Um, Riley does push back on saying that Mila didn't want to write all of the things. Riley says that this is a creative process with a creative script and that Mila did things that they thought were necessary, but Riley also disagreed with some of the things that Mila
Mhm.
created, so it's back and forth. And then we cut on over to messages between Mila and Riley. Mila is pushing back on what they think is going too far with some of the graphic scenes.
Yep.
Riley gets upset and is a little bit rude and at one point stops
Yeah.
communicating with Mila when Mila is like, "Look, I just think that we're being irresponsible. I want to do this right. Like I just
And
don't want us to be like,
Riley's very much trying to like push the like we need to push the boundaries. We're
mhm,
artists. We need to do this. This is important work, and especially being the people that we are within this horror genre, that we need to try and like push what we're doing to the max. Like if there's a line, we want to be at
on
or
the
past it.
well, and she points out like, look, in 12 years if we don't go far enough, we're just going to be a footnote. So we have to go so
Mhm.
far that we remain part of the conversation. And Mila's point is like at some point you've crossed the line into actual art, into just like the torture titillation that people are
Yes.
talking about. And I don't want to cross that line because I don't want the work to get on top of us.
Hmm.
And so after Riley goes silent, she um, apologizes, noting that it is too far and that Mila is right. But she also notes that she's really sick of getting censored as a female artist. She
Yeah.
knows that this will make the product better, that they're thinking through these things. Like as a woman, she's like, I understand that thinking
Mhm.
through these things is a strength. It's not something that's bad. But she also wants to make a splash. And she knows that men wouldn't be thinking about this and they wouldn't
Right.
have to think so much about the boundaries that they're pushing.
Which I think is an excellent point because you and I think, have had brief discussions on this in like discussions on other books that like, we let Stephen King say all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff. And if a woman were to write something like that, we're going to have all sorts of questions. And,
Yes.
it's not going to get this instant 5-star ratings and
Or we even talk
like
about this
all
with
of
like
the
mediocre
discussion.
works where we're like, well,
Yes.
men have so many mediocre works, but anytime you read a book written by a black person, it has to be the best
Yes.
way or the best thing you've ever read. And it's like, well, black people deserve mediocreness just as
Hmm.
much as white men do. So like
Yep.
it all is in focus. So she wants to be controversial. That's the whole point.
Hmm.
We do find out that the character Red looks a lot like Riley. She said that this wasn't intentional. It was more about the color schemes. They're using a lot of red, so having someone
Hmm.
with dark eyes and dark long hair makes sense from an artistic
Sure.
standpoint. Then we
Also, it's
shift.
always a redhead.
I don't think she has red hair. She has like dark hair. It's like
Yeah,
dark
she
brown.
was gonna be a redhead initially, but then they
Yeah.
changed it to brunette and with dark eyes because of the color scheme, like you were saying. But yeah,
Yeah.
initially she was going to be a redhead with green eyes, I thought is what was mentioned.
Yes, I think you are correct. So it's always a redhead, as Laura said. So then we cut on over to the creator having this open letter. Um, he is talking about needing help on the dark web formatting his site. He wants this website up and running, and he hints that he has some type of red character and that he has someone in mind for it who is a volunteer of sorts. Then we go over to the questions from the AKA Con, where someone asks if Riley feels responsible for people getting off on her work sexually.
Hmm.
She's like, I don't. That is someone else's choice to look at my very dark material that looks at the dark web at this very like dangerous
Hmm.
place that I'm showing these psychological ramifications for, and they've decided that they are turned on by this. That is not my fault. That is their choice.
I thought that some of this was just like extremely well written, just
Yeah.
really a healthy discourse on this type of situation because I just really appreciated a lot of this.
Well, it gets into a lot of the stuff that I think people discuss a lot of like if someone is creating something that is dark and looking at the psychological issues
Hmm.
within it, and people still only take the like titillating parts, then they're really they're misjudging
Yep.
the piece and the full spectrum of the piece for a tiny little part that worked for them, and
And
that's
it's
not
also
okay.
interesting too because there's mentions of like responsibility and the
Yes.
responsibility that the artist has. And I do kind of appreciate the way that Riley pushes back on this too and is like, I don't think that creators should have to be responsible for these
Yep.
types of misplaced reactions to their
Yes.
work.
Um, and she does get really upset and she kind of freaks out.
Yes.
She's like, I'm so fucking done. And she kind of like
And I
gives
think it's
almost
kind of a
a,
breaking point, probably because I'm the way that I took it was, we're having these discussions all the time. Riley's getting frustrated as someone who's trying to push the envelope and, like have deeper discussions on
yeah.
trauma and all of the horrific things that surround these situations
Hmm.
and is not getting that kind of discussion, but is more so like, are you going to take responsibility for the things that you
Yes.
have done, you bad lady? So,
It is very much that of like, well, do you even realize what you've done? And she's like, yes, I realize what I've done. I'm an adult human who
and
knows that
also
like this
discussions
is
of like
not my fault.
her looking like the character and everything. That I think is also very woman centric, where it's like, would we be questioning whether or not a man looks like the lead character? Probably not, like that
Right.
type of stuff. So I think it's really a breaking point for her.
Yes, I agree. Um, and so then that ends with part one. And then
Mhm.
part two starts off with a bang. There is a dead woman in Ohio who has chains all around her, which we will later find out is very reminiscent of Red.
Mhm.
The police are searching for who did this and they don't really know what's going on. Then we get a Patreon post from Riley saying that she is going on hiatus. She does make mention of the dead body that was found, but she doesn't blame herself for this. And she knows that it was a human, but she also knows that like she cannot blame herself on a mental level, but in her heart, she still does hold some responsibility because she does
Mhm.
care that a human life died in a fashion that looks like one of her creations. Um,
Mhm.
and she says she's like very accountable about the fact that she doesn't want to hold ownership over these types of things. Then we go on to people chatting about it's just general discussions of read the book, and this is where we find out that there is a person in the book called the creator. So
Mhm.
this is a person in the story that they're bringing out into the open. We also get another letter from the creator saying that they know that Riley is gone and that his first attempt at like homage, kind of is what it's hinted at, was not great. But overall, he thinks that this must continue and go on. Then we get into the archival of our own story, chapter one, about the Violet character who we heard about earlier.
Mhm.
And Violet is this character who's in the Violet room. And she's kind of discussing her first work, that this isn't a perfect system, but she needs to get these streams. So she's obviously a sex worker
Yep.
who is being tortured. She's malnourished and she does want to succeed. And she also talks about being injured using whips. And then it ends
Mhm.
with like everyone saying, like, thank you so much for posting this story. You know?
Yeah.
um,
I mean, the person that wrote it, I think, is the one like, thanks
yeah.
for reading this and hopefully I'll come back to this sometime.
Very much Hannah fanfic coded. And then we go over to a Red Fan server on Discord for the fan theories. They're all talking about like someone called capacity for pain, which not a great sign.
No.
Um, but they talk about the color theory and
Hmm.
how it's mixed with these like escapist theories about like this is just like escape from real horror and all these different things and
Hmm.
how the like red fan theory is like it's a social experiment to see how people react who are consuming it. So again, very meta of like the real
Yeah.
experiment is us. And they're like, but that
People are
feeds
all
right
like
into
kind
the
of questioning
color
like
theory. Yeah.
Yes, people are all questioning like how cyclic it is and if Riley just created all of this as like a twisted social experiment. And this was so all of this is so reminiscent of Reddit that I can't even describe how close it is to actual Reddit.
Yeah. And they also kind of like talk about how everyone just keeps talking about the recent murder and they're like, I thought the fan theory board would be different. So also very
Hmm.
Reddit coded of like, how dare we
Yes.
talk about something else or have everyone fixated
I
on
mean, I
this
think
one
these
thing.
are Reddit feeds. They're supposed to be,
Yes.
but it's
I
like,
think this is a
man,
Discord feed though.
oh, okay,
If
okay.
I'm remembering
And
correctly. I
there
think
are
this
like
was
Tumblr
Discord.
feeds too, but
Yes.
a lot of it just feels very much like Reddit Discord feeds, something
Yes.
similar to that, where it's like, oh, this is
This is a deep look in
spot
online
on.
culture. And then we have a blog post Tumblr for Red Ask Red, where it's this person who is a huge fan of the comic and is kind of playing Red and asking for like
Hmm.
feedback on this and how they can pretend to be Red. Um, and then we also have another note from the creator talking about
Hmm.
setting the next stage, trying to make the first like a practice run, and then how he's going to not be done yet. And he just needs more community of fans. Then we get chapter 2 of Violet. In this chapter, she's kind of noting that she was a volunteer, but she's kind of different. Her life isn't perfect. And then all of a sudden, a woman comes in and she is covered in blood.
Yep.
And we get another note from the person who's
And she
talking
has
about the first.
chains too, correct?
Yes, yes. So it seems like this is probably red and a
Red coded,
connection.
yeah.
Yes. And so she kind of notes that like the person who's writing this archive of our own notes that they have some friends who are not super thrilled with the fic
Hmm.
with Violet, and so they're obviously trying to like people please and trying to get people to
Hmm.
like what they're doing, which is also very fan fiction-esque.
Yep. And
Um,
also very online community-esque to try
yes.
and appease your followers.
Yep. And so then we have a private conversation between Mila and Michael, who Michael appears to be someone who is connected to Riley. He says he hasn't heard from Riley recently. And Mila is like, okay, and she doesn't want to talk to you. Leave her alone. And he's like, I just want to make sure that she's okay. Like, can you check on her? And Mila's like, okay, she's fine. Like, I'm gonna do this one time for you, but never again. So there's something going on. Then we go back onto the Red Ask Red. It's just kind of like a cosplay of Red. And
I
how
think they
like
say it's a role-playing thread.
yes, yeah, it's a role-playing thread. They said that they didn't think Riley would mind. She's an advocate for this kind of work.
Hmm.
But
Which a
we
lot of
find
creators are like they do
yeah,
appreciate like people doing this with their work. So very
yeah.
realistic.
And then we go back to Violet, and Red's like looking at all the cameras, or this red like person.
Hmm.
And she kind of asks like if Violet was hurt, can she speak? And how long they've had her. And then she's like, okay, let's get you out of here. And it's kind of like this savior type esque
Yeah.
moment. But the creator also says that like someone on here who is one of the big creators is very interested in their work. And they reached out to this person who created Violet. I don't know why I'm calling them a her. They don't have any
Yeah, we don't know.
association with their gender. But they were like, okay, so we're gonna like I'm keeping it on the download, but it's exciting. So just, let me
Hmm.
know. And then there's a ton of people who are reacting to the Red Ask Red, and the fact that like Red is special and they shouldn't be doing this. And Red is like, no, Red is special. That's why I've chosen them as an RP. And
Hmm.
then they post that they're shutting down because they've had some of the nastiest threats they've ever seen.
Yeah.
They've been sent some women being chained up, burnt and oozing. It's just gross. And they're like, look, I got this passive aggressive email. Someone found out who I was. This is really scary. I was just trying to be creative, and this has turned into something different, which is also
Hmm.
interesting.
Yep.
And then we cut on over to the homepage of Mila's studios, where they tell everyone that their accounts have been compromised, foreshadowing, I think.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, don't answer any suspicious emails, even if it has my check mark. Um, Everything's being suspended. I'll be resuming content later, but like right now, it's just not safe.
Hmm.
And then we get another message from the creator and how they're in it for Riley and the facility has been upgraded, and Red is going to be great, and they're going to have so much
This
in
red
it.
because the first one didn't work out like
Yeah.
they thought.
Do you
So this
think
one is
Red
way
might
better.
Red might be Riley maybe? And they
Yeah.
said no one is safe, which ends part 2. Dun dun dun. So Laura, we love it so far, right?
I really love it. I was like so into this that you know how you like read a book and like the whole world around you like disappears? That was my experience just reading this where I was completely absorbed.
Oh
And
my
there's
gosh.
like a point my husband was like talking to me and I was like, "What? I'm not listening to you. I'm in another world right now."
I just
And
had
I
the
kind of love
best
those
time with
moments.
this book. It's so good.
It's
I'm
incredible.
I have already ordered, or I've already paid for this on Kobo, and I'm definitely just gonna order the paperback
Hmm.
because it is just that good. Everyone go buy this book. It's delightful. I can't wait to
Yeah,
find out what happens at the end. This is a wild ride. So
fantastic.
we're so
I
happy
feel
this
like I
one
didn't chip
won.
in that much, but
There's not much to chip
there's
into. Like,
not a lot of things to discuss, honestly, besides just like a few of the things that we mentioned as far as like there are some really interesting discussions surrounding creations, artwork, the way that like violence and trauma are depicted, and also just like marginalized authors. So 5 stars, 10 stars.
it's so fascinating that like Cat really created this world. And Cat is like huge into con seasons, like
Okay.
very involved in fan service. So I think it's a very unique experience of someone who sees all these different types of boards,
Hmm.
participates in them, and sees the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because there are
Sure.
so many different parts of internet culture that's very beneficial. But I think you and I, like as time has gone on in our year of 2025, where we're
Hmm.
thinking a lot more about our media consumption and how it can be
Hmm.
helpful and how it can be hurtful. And I think this
Right.
book really takes a stance of like nothing is bad in a vacuum, but nothing is good in a vacuum
Yep.
either. And like sometimes artwork can be mutated and made to feel like dark and dirty if you're not looking at it with like a
Hmm.
sound mind or with enough like perspective. Because like it is deep, it is dark, and it does hit that like criminal mind-esque like
Oh yeah.
scratch to like at least my brain as someone who grew
Hmm.
up with a lot of like true crime or
Hmm.
criminal mind type energy. Like this
Yeah.
really sits in that sphere. And if that is ethical, you know, like we talk about Law and Order, like is Law and
Yep.
Order an ethical show? Like it's a big question on what like art can do and what
Hmm. And its
responsibility an
influence.
artist
Yeah.
has. Yeah. And I just think it's very fascinating. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Really, really great book so far. Like,
And so quick. Like, I mean,
fantastic.
it has a lot of meatiness to it because I was able to really describe a lot of
Hmm.
stuff, but there's so much in this book of like reviews from Riley because Riley doesn't have
Sure.
much of a voice in this other than like an interview or two, but
Yeah.
like you get to see her actual personality in some of her tweets. So I think
Hmm.
that that's also important to know, but can't wait to see what comes next in the second half of this novel. So
Yeah.
join us next
It's so
week.
good.
Um, and you know, as a reminder, we're having Kat on later, so like she's gonna
I'm
have
so
to listen to
excited.
us like squeal about how much we loved this book. So
Kat, if you're
uh,
listening right now, we love this book a lot.
we do. This is, you know, I think we've really hit it out of the park this year with indie
Our indie
missions.
missions
Like
this year is so great.
they're so good in different
Javi, if you're
ways
listening
too.
right now,
Like,
I still think about your book. It's
oh
so
my
good.
gosh.
I
Javi,
love that one.
I can't wait for your next book to be coming out because I know
Yes.
you've been posting about it. Like, oh, can't wait to read it. So,
We'll
uh,
cover it on
thank
the
you both.
pod. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. So join us next week. Before that, if you know, you can follow us along at OWWR Pod on all the social media platforms, Blue Sky, TikTok, and Instagram, and join our Discord where we can chit chat about this
Yes.
book if you want to. Just come
Please
over
come
and
talk
talk
about
to
this.
us.
That would be such a meta experience
Such a
talking
meta.
about this book via Discord.
We can Discord up. We can like show screenshots if you guys talk to us about it, and it would be
Yes.
very meta.
Hannah, share
Uh,
some screenshots on Wednesday of the inside of this book
okay, will do.
to show us
Yes,
some of the
I.
typo to show us some of the
It's
typography of it.
so good, Laura. It's amazing. I was so
Yes.
impressed with it. So, yeah, make sure that you guys check out that on Wednesday. Just a little sneak peek to
Well,
really get
today.
you guys or oh, today. Sorry.
I'm saying
Uh,
on Wednesday, we're recording in the past.
yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
reminding Hannah to, in the future,
Today.
do this.
Yes, I will be posting that today for everyone. So check out our Instagram to see a little sneak peek of how beautiful these pages look. And
Yes.
if you would be so kind, please rate, review, and subscribe. Rating, reviewing, and
Yes.
subscribing is a great way to get people to our channel. Even if you go to YouTube and make a comment, we see them and we love them. So
Yeah, we really
please,
appreciate the feedback. Like
we
I
do.
even if it's like not like gushing feedback, like we do take your suggestions to heart and we have been trying to implement like requests and things like that. But just you guys listening and leaving nice comments, that means so much.
I mean, like we've been growing this channel for a long time, and it feels like recently we've had an uptick, so we really appreciate that as well. Like I've
Yeah.
been noticing it, and we take it so much to heart. So we really appreciate you guys joining along with
So
us.
don't leave because I made a misstep with my Star Wars facts earlier.
Please don't, because we had some like great turnouts for our Witch King discussion and our Nevo discussion, and we love
Which were
seeing
so
them.
good.
So please check those out. Rate, review, and subscribe, and join us next week as we close out this amazing conversation. Bye.
Bye.